to another week of Real True Facts. It's so good to have you with us. My name is Tina Belcher.
And I am Phil Woods. Not that one.
Not that one. Last week, we were challenged to do an episode that is less scary than the ones that we have been doing. I think our topics have been a little heavy, so we're going to talk about something that I think is near and dear to both of our hearts.
Yeah, yes, Bigfoot is near and dear to my heart. I'd love to say that he or she or they're always friendly, but just like a human, there are times where, they may be a little aggravated or you may be invading their space. So I don't, I'm just maybe prefacing the episode by saying it's not all sunshine.
Sure.
Just because they are living, breathing creatures.
Yeah, and, you could be having a bad day. Sometimes you have a bad day. It happens. Bigfoot, I won't say they're only human, but for lack of a better term, they're only Bigfoot. So they're doing what he can. So you like Bigfoot. What about Sasquatch? Do you subscribe to any of those other names, Phil?
I do like Sasquatch quite a bit. Bigfoot, not as much a fan of wood ape.
Uh-huh.
Or some of the others, because Bigfoot is classic.
But a Yeti is a different thing, though.
As far as I know, yes, Yetis are a different kind of species, so they fall under a different category. Maybe we'll be able to draw some lines when we bring in Dr. Seymour, and get that science foundation that we so desperately need.
Yeah, I mean, because I love Bigfoot. I love that he or she or they are a staunch conservationist. I think they are just the number one friend to the animal kingdom, to nature's kingdom. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think a lot of the American tall tales were really based on Bigfoot. Like, I think Johnny Appleseed was kind of a Bigfoot legend. That he
Paul
would,
Bunyan.
Yeah, definitely a Bigfoot legend.
The John Henry, the steel driving man. We know that wouldn't be humanly possible.
No, it was probably Bigfoot.
Bigfoot, definitely Bigfootedly possible.
Yeah. I mean, there's just giant, because I know Bigfoot is kind of exclusive to the American Northwest, and so and California.
They do pop up other places.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I know they're all over. They're secretive and they like to keep their own, but I think they've popped up in other places.
Well, we'll get into that with Dr. Seymour, and we do have a very special guest with us today.
Yes, I myself have not really gone to a lot of official parks, but I'm being told that this is an official park ranger, correct?
Yes, from a very, very important and very recognized park as well. We won't spoil it now, but you've definitely heard of this park.
Yeah, I'd go as far as saying prestigious.
Yeah, it's not like Bob's Park. Like, this is like the park when you think about national parks. See, maybe I've already said too much. Maybe I've already ruined it.
Yeah, I mean, if you think of a national park, name three.
You can't. You just name the one.
Yeah, this is going to be at the top of that list.
This is it.
Or maybe the only one on the list.
Yeah, so we are very excited to have him here today. We'll bring him in a little later. We'll get to some of the science goodness with Dr. Seymour. But first, and now it's time for...
Did you know? Tina, did you know the first guitar was made as a joke to appear as a giant ukulele?
Whoa. No. But did you know the Container Store boosts their profits by charging 50 cents for the air that comes inside every container?
Computer keyboard keys were designed to emit the same frequency as a typewriter key to ease the user's transition from analog to digital in the 1980s.
That makes sense. That would have been jarring. Phil, did you know red is not really a primary color? You can make it by mixing 3 different colors together, which is referred to as a tertiary color. Coca-Cola's legal department has eliminated the names of those 3 colors so regular people can't make their own shade of red.
Wow.
Yeah.
Kitty litter is highly explosive and was the first kind of gunpowder ever used. Gun manufacturers deemed it too dangerous, So it hasn't been used since the Revolutionary War.
Thank God. Well, did you know? The first oven mitts were made from severed bear legs. But don't worry, that bear was an asshole. Hundreds of years later, the Hanna-Barbera cartoon Yogi Bear premieres in 1958. Guess who it was about? Guess.
The oven mitts.
Yeah, it was about that bear.
Wow, that was
Yeah.
a lucky guess on my
It
part.
was, wasn't it? This has been Did You Know?
Did you know? So this week we are talking about the inimitable Bigfoot or Sasquatch. He has a lot of excellent names, and maybe we can get some other variations on that. And we have a great ranger guest with us this week. But first, why don't we bring out our in-house science expert, Mr. Dr. Seymour?
Yeah, I got that mainframe all queued up here. I pre-downloaded it. Dr. Seymour.
Yes.
Oh, there he is.
Hello, I'm here. Hi, Tina and Phil.
Sounded good this week.
Yeah, thank you.
Healthy.
Excited to be here.
Good.
So we're talking about Bigfoot. So first of all, what is a Bigfoot?
Bigfoot, or as I think a lot of people are also familiar, the Sasquatch would be a member of the great ape family. It's a upright walking, kind of almost human ape hybrid. It would fall in the family of primates, along with we humans, orangutans, gorillas, chimpanzees. But it is going to be in a different genus or species, obviously, than humans.
Okay, so primates, they are the ones who don't lay eggs, correct?
Yes, no eggs for primates. There's also so primates don't lay eggs. They do, however, eat eggs. All primates have to make at least 5% of their diet for at least 1 year of their life on the egg of another animal.
Okay.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Eggs seem to define so many different species, whether you're making them or eating them.
Yeah. I mean, I ate eggs this morning for breakfast. The parallels are really uncanny.
I craved eggs, and apparently it's in my biology.
That's so weird. I mean, we talk a lot about missing links. I think this is probably the third show that we've brought up a missing link. And there's a lot of talk that the Bigfoot or Sasquatch could really be the missing link between humans and our human ancestors, or even apes of some kind.
Yes, there is a lot of reason to believe that even though that connection is millions of years old, that it is likely that someone, something, maybe someone, right at that line, if we're talking, how human are we talking, has been able to survive, because the step right before becoming human is obviously still an intelligent species, is one that can use tools, is one that can communicate. So to think that would have died off, but humans would have survived all this time, is pretty unlikely.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned communication, and I think that's such a huge part of being alive and being a human. But when we look at Bigfoot, and from my perspective, he doesn't really seem like he's that good at communicating. I mean, we have footprints, we have sort of interesting, unclear sightings. I mean, is this a new way of communicating? Is this an old way of communicating? It doesn't seem like something that would be so closely related to a human would. I feel like the way that he doesn't want people to know that he's there.
I actually am kind of interested in this myself, so I didn't want to intercept you, Dr. Seymour, but I can relate to this on a human level. I don't like to leave a lot of tracks, and I spend long amounts of time not wanting to deal with any other living beings or creatures. So I think I share that with the Bigfoot. So maybe it's maybe that's a trait that's been bred.
Shared
Back
DNA.
Yeah, back to you. What's your thought on that, Dr. Seymour? Is it just maybe they're good at communicating, but they just don't want to?
Yeah, this is where someone who's had more direct contact with a Bigfoot would be a wonderful, this is where
Resource.
someone who's had a direct connection with Bigfoot would be a wonderful resource. It is very likely that with so few Bigfoot or big feet out there, that they wouldn't be communicating with one another all that much and wouldn't need a highly developed language as such. Any communication could be very limited. It could be much more similar to other primates or even to other animals that are less social animals, just a communication as needed, as you were saying. Phil, I don't want or need to communicate with others, so you do it in a very limited way, only when trying to pose a threat or threatened or somehow otherwise fighting for survival.
Okay.
So it's body language. That's really what we're talking about here, is not a verbal communication, but a physical communication by either, it's like that fight or flight thing, is you either remove yourself from a situation or you put yourself into a situation. And I think in the case of the Bigfoot, his need is to remove himself from things. So maybe that's where humans get this fight or flight response, is this thing that has been bred in our species over so many generations, and that the Bigfoot could possibly be the missing link between primates and humans. I mean, am I super far off on that, or?
No, I do think that that's very likely. But then even if we do have evidence of the Bigfoot as the missing link, there's still so many other questions about how and why some evolved, some didn't. What is the reason? Is it self-isolation?
Yeah.
Was there some personality of individual hominids that turned them to or kept them as a Bigfoot, whereas others evolved to humans? Or is there a biological reason why some went one way, some went another at that point in history?
So that sounds like a good question for our park ranger once he comes on, is we can maybe find out about some the direct communication he has had with Bigfoot, and maybe we'll be able to get some more details on, Bigfoot's just kind of quiet, just kind of keeps to himself.
Right.
Or it's Bigfoot's just really awful at communicating in general. So I'm hoping our guests can expound on that a bit.
Yeah, maybe. Hopefully. I think with a lot of things, especially when we're dealing with animals or something that doesn't have a verbal language, I think a lot of times we want to project our feelings onto that creature. Like we have our dog looks at us, we're like, oh, the dog loves us. It's like, well, we don't know that for sure. We're projecting our own emotions onto that. So I think having a person on who has had these encounters with Bigfoot is really going to open it up and give us some insight, because I guess my looming question is, how can something be that big? And I think when I think about that, I think about the sloths that were around during the Ice Age. Like, those things were gigantic. Those things were like 10 feet tall. And so we know that things like this did exist. And so it's very interesting to me to see how they're still existing to this day.
Yeah, I think that's interesting as well. Maybe we should. I'd like to get into it with our special.
Maybe
we should take a quick break and come back and dig deeper with Bigfoot.
Sounds good. We'll be right back. Our guest today joins us from Yellowstone National Park. Yes, the Yellowstone National Park. the one and only. He has been a park ranger for 15 years, so I think it's safe to say that he's a lifer. And he is the number one expert in Bigfoot. As far as communication goes, I think he has the most, I guess, hours clocked communicating with Bigfoot. So we are so excited to have him here. Please give him a real true welcome to Ranger Steve Littles.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
So, Ranger Steve, you've been a ranger now for 15 years. Is that correct?
16 years.
Wow. So, how long have you been? Well, I guess I should say, when was the first time you saw Bigfoot? Were you a park ranger?
Oh, shoot. Yeah. Park ranger in training year 1 was the first time I ran into that guy. And off and on for up until my present day career.
Wow. So is there one particular Bigfoot you normally deal with? Have you seen them all over the place? Or
that's a bit of the misconception that's happening is there's only 2. People think there's many.
Okay.
Yeah, there's only 2, and they're both male, which is why there isn't any more.
Oh.
Yeah, they can't procreate together because they're male. But there's one in Yellowstone and there's one over in the Olympic National Forest, and every 6 months they venture halfway, meet up, and exchange some wood taps, which is their form of communication. They do it through tapping of wood on trees. It's a bit like Morse code, except it's backwards.
How do you mean backwards?
Well, instead of A, B, C, so on, it's Z, X, Y, and so forth.
Okay, it's backwards.
It's coded.
Yep. Yeah, it's their own universal form of communication. I'm not, to be honest, it's so hard for me to understand that I don't often get to figure out how they establish this form of communication.
So I've heard of those, the wood, the tree knocking. What about the Bigfoot calls? Is that a real thing? Is it just them having a good time?
Well,
is there any communication with that?
Oh, I'm sorry, Doc. I didn't. Yeah, I mean, they with the calls more than anything, it's just other animals. The Bigfoot's a pretty quiet specimen. Even it's a quiet specimen, and oftentimes won't exuberate any vocal vibration or noise of any kind. He's an introverted type of guy.
Yeah.
So communicating vocally is just going to put it in a vulnerable state. It's not wanting to draw attention. Oftentimes the photos you see, he's spooked. He's not trying to be photographed. He's just trying to be. And so the calls are all tales of the, I don't want to say crypt because they're still alive, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So more excellent parsing of what's fact and what's fiction.
And another thing I do want to clear, if you don't mind, the reason why they call him Bigfoot is because one of his feet is normal sized.
Oh.
It's just one that's large.
It's just one.
It's just,
what's the size discrepancy we're talking about here?
For the larger one?
Yeah, like this between the, I guess, regular size one and then the larger one.
Oh gosh, it's a good 7 inches.
Oh wow, that's big.
7.5 on a good day, depends.
Yeah.
So that's why it's Bigfoot and not big feet.
Yep.
Because it's
not big feet.
It's singular.
Yeah.
So I guess just walk us through how you became that guy to be the one to I guess be in the inner sanctum of the 2 big feet or Bigfoots, I guess, because there's 2 of them.
Yeah, Bigfoots.
How did you come about to be that person that they let into the inner circle?
It's just kind of a funny story because I was just like I had said, I was year 1. I was in training. I was out there in Yellowstone doing my daily walks on the trails, inspecting the trees, and I came across Bigfoot, and he obviously scared the bananas out of me, and I just froze, didn't know what to do, and he also froze. And then he began doing the wood taps. And I thought to myself, that sounds an awful lot like Morse code. Mm-hmm. But it sounded like Morse code backwards.
Yeah.
And I knew Morse code through my ranger training. So I communicated backwards through Morse code to see if he was of danger.
Yeah.
he just he just wanted just to not be picked on, not be photographed. He just wanted to be and just communicate with another being of a different species without just trying to get something from him.
Yeah. I mean, he's like the ultimate celebrity. He's the ultimate recluse.
He truly is.
People just want to take photos. They just want to know that he's there.
Right. Well, technically the two of them, but yeah, for this purpose, refer to the one.
Yeah.
But
right.
So after that, I can't go find him. He finds me. That's how it happens.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I would think the more reclusive, the more desire we have to see whatever it is.
What do you mean by reclusive? Could you define what that is?
A recluse. Is
that an animal? A wild animal?
Yeah, he doesn't. An animal or really anything that doesn't want to be seen or bothered. Oh, that's the stuff we want to see and bother.
No different than a snow fox. No different.
Right. I would definitely think that is correct.
That's a different episode, though.
So most of us have only seen these blurry pictures and secondhand accounts. What you've seen Bigfoot. What does it look like?
It's to be honest, those pictures are just poorly photoshopped. They didn't use the right. They're smudge and everything. Honestly, I have crystal clear pictures at my house where I'm at right now. I'm looking at it right now, right on the wall. He looks like a bear that was mated with a beaver that also was part human. I mean, and I say beaver because the texture of the beaver fur is more accurate to what the texture of the bear fur is for Bigfoot.
Like a very water resistant.
It's a water resistant, and it's a lot finer. It's a lot finer, and the color's more spot on per se. I'd say the color's more spot on.
And how tall was it?
Gosh, I mean, he grew several inches since I've known him. He's only getting taller.
Yeah.
Thank goodness we get a little smaller as we get older. But I think now he's probably 8'7", 8'7".
Wow.
So it is a large beast then.
It is. Well, we don't use beast because it's not politically correct. But yeah, it's a large Bigfoot.
It's a large animal.
Yeah. Have you seen both of them together?
I got the opportunity to venture over halfway to the Olympic National Forest 3 springs ago. And I did. And it was beautiful. It was beautiful to see both of them at the same time with me in front of them watch me, watching all of us just be together and one unison group sitting in a semicircle around a campfire. It was, to be honest, it sounds a little far-fetched, but it was the most beautiful moment of my life.
I got chills when you said that. Like straight up, like I could visualize it and I got chills.
I'm getting chills just thinking about it. I'm getting chills in the inside of my throat.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, wow. So why are they meeting up? Is it a feeling of
purely social? Purely social. They don't have much human interaction. I know they're introverted, but they still got that little butterfly inside that needs to get out every so often. That's why it's every 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just to go and communicate and wood tap with another being who just gets you, who understands you, who has been in your foot per se.
Now, what are they talking about when they have these meetings?
Like I said, I do understand the language, but it is a little difficult because they do speak it so fast. It sounds like a woodpecker. They're tapping so fast. But I can only guess that it's nothing but pleasantries because they just have the largest smiles.
No. You think it's something similar to English? If you're able to understand the similarities?
Yeah, I would say it's either English or Chinese, one of the two.
Okay. I mean, those are huge languages.
Yeah.
In the world. So, yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, these are things that I've never heard before about Bigfoot. So I'm so happy to have an expert like you on to be able to educate us on it because, I mean, I only know my information from the American Tall Tales. Like we said, we know that stories like Johnny Appleseed and Paul Bunyan, the what was it, Waco's Bill, or the tornado. It's like all those things where people were larger than life.
Mm-hmm.
That was probably things that Bigfoot had done, but it was hard to wrap your brain around. So it's like, oh, this is a large person. It's like, well, what else is a seemingly large individual? That's Bigfoot.
Right.
So to be able to hear that they're able to sit and chill and have their own language, and
they chill. I mean, cheese is their favorite. Aside from eggs, like Dr. Seymour had mentioned before, I mean, they're full-on vegetarians, which is a forward-thinking way to be. I mean, they're just the most innovative little creatures you should say make. I mean, I say little, but my goodness, they are big.
I want to talk a little bit about their conservation efforts, because we know Bigfoot is a very big advocate for nature and is very peaceful in that way. What are some things about the parks, maybe animals you've seen return, or like bees maybe have returned due to the efforts of the Bigfoot, things like that you've seen that we know that they're putting in the work?
The bees have been back, and the bees are back stronger than ever. The bees are back stronger than ever. Bigfoot is he's got a lot of buzz for those little things. Because they provide him with a sweet honey, and oftentimes Bigfoot will help the bees build the nests. You notice they're round. Yeah, that's the work of the Bigfoot. Are an excellent sculptor when it comes to hives.
Wow.
Yep. So the bees are back stronger than ever. The wolves are dominating. I mean, he's domesticating them a little bit, but they are just flourishing in Yellowstone. It's really got everything going. I mean, the fish are jumping. They didn't used to jump like they do now. In the 16 years, I haven't seen fish jump like this.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be a downer, but it concerns me that they're both male and they're the only two left. In your expert opinion, having dealt with animals for so long in your life, what's the future like for Bigfoot?
Well, it's grim. They don't have a lot of time. And like I said, they're both males. So, I mean, what else can you do? You can't just put one inside the other, one's got maybe another couple thousand years, and the other one's got maybe a few hundred. So the timing's all off. The future, and it does hurt me to say that to you, because the being is just so majestical, and you just want it to be forever. You want it to be forever.
I really want to try and get to the bottom of this. Please. Dr. Seymour, are you still with us?
Yes. Yes, I'm with you, sir.
Is there a way, can we clone a Bigfoot or grow one in a test tube or a beaker or a petri dish? How can we, it sounds like we're going to have to intervene in one way or another to perpetuate the species.
Yes, with critically endangered species, there's only so much we can do. Like zoos are taking up carrying as much of the weight that they can, bringing opposite sex members of those species together. Obviously, we don't have that as an option, but it has been a decade or more since we were able to successfully clone a sheep. So at this point, we have the first logistical question of how to get the necessary DNA to do that. Trying to observe and learn as much about the Bigfoot during that process, so we can learn more about how to raise more Bigfoots naturally, if that's the way that we are hoping to do that. But also the ethical dilemma of, is it our place? This group here, we all love Bigfoot, and we would celebrate both of them, and I
would die for Bigfoot.
Yeah.
You're telling me. Telling me.
And I mean, there's no question that us and many of the listeners would feel the same way and want this species to grow in an appropriate, safe environment for them. But I know that there are haters out there, and as we know in the scientific and the rap community, haters gonna hate.
Mm-hmm.
They always do.
They always
So,
do.
Ranger Steve, can you think of personally, or are you aware of any cons to perpetuating or keeping the Bigfoot species alive? Are there there are people who consider them pests?
There are people who consider them pests, and like Dr. Seymour said, the haters are going to hate, and there's nothing you can do. Part of me thinks that yes, we should step in. We should step in and step up and use today's modern day technology to further enhance the development of the Bigfoot. But there's also a part of me that's like, well, is that in God's will?
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's going to just be hard to get that DNA out of the Bigfoot. How are you going to do that? You can't just pick and prod it. That's not how you get the DNA. You know how you get the DNA. You know how you get the DNA.
Yeah, old-fashioned way.
Old-fashioned way. And
there unfortunately doesn't seem like there are a lot of people close enough. So, I mean, if this is going to happen, it sounds like Ranger Steve.
I've communicated in the ways that I can, the best of my ability, to let them know that, hey, if you're looking for something, if you're looking to further the species of your beautiful source of energy, then I would be happy to remove that DNA from you and put it into a tiny little test tube and take it to where it needs to go to get tested, to get cloned, to get duplicated times 1,000. I don't know how many we need to have, 1,000, 2,000, but there's just it's back and forth for me.
It seems like, because what you said, that there is a big age discrepancy between the two of them. So it sounds almost like you have the wolf and the cub. You have the wise Bigfoot, and you've got the young buck.
You couldn't have said it better, Tina.
So it's like maybe the wise one is imparting wisdom on the younger one, and maybe because they invite you into the circle, maybe they're holding on to that shred of truth that maybe you'll have some news for them about the future of their species. But also because from what you said, they seem really happy. So when they're hanging out and they're communicating, maybe there's just a peace and an acceptance between the two of them that they are the last of their species, and they're just gonna have a nice time and do the best they can to perpetuate life in other forms in the wilderness.
100%. You couldn't have said it better, because they are at peace when they're sitting there and they're laughing and they're wood tapping. I mean, they are true Buddhists in that way. They're just being.
Wow. I think we're gonna have to take a quick break here and come back and really explore the options, because I don't know who else out there is doing the work that needs to be done.
Yeah, maybe that's something we can post to our listeners, is to put their feelers out and see if they know of anything. Maybe we can make a connection today. But let's take a quick little break, and we will be right back with Ranger Steve Littles.
This week, we are talking about a Bigfoot with Ranger Steve Littles. I'm Phil Woods, and with me, as always, is Tina Belcher. And we're dealing with some really heavy stuff. It's enlightening, educational, moving, sad, happy. I mean, it's a whirlwind of emotions.
It is, and I have to admit, because I have been in such the spooky, scary zone with our past few episodes, I thought, okay, we'll get into this Bigfoot thing. It'll be super light. We'll tell some stories. We'll have some laughs. We'll talk about butterflies and little baby bunnies and stuff like that. It'll just be super light. But actually, the show has kind of pivoted and taken this sort of like solemn, very almost like there's a reverence there to how we're talking about Bigfoot today, because there is this element of impermanence that we know that someday these two Bigfoot aren't going to be here anymore.
Yeah, it sounds like, a lot of people like to try and take photos and hunt the Bigfoot and, all of this nonsense. But I think a lot more attention needs to be paid to, hey, we're not seeing them everywhere. And as it turns out, they're only two. So what are we going to do? We have to is it our place to step in? Or
Yeah.
are we playing God? And if we are playing God, is that a bad thing?
Yeah, there's a huge ethical element to all of this. And I think, we've got Dr. Seymour with us as always, but I think that we have the best guy with us today. Ranger Steve Littles is still with us, talking more about Bigfoot and maybe weighing some of those ethical concerns that we have.
Right. And he made an interesting comment when he said they're the most pure form of Buddhists. So that's almost a different way to frame things when we ask, well, should we be playing God? Well,
yeah, I think it can be a very selfish way of thinking. Is like, there's only 2 Bigfoots left. We need more. It's like, well, if they've been around for ages, for eons, it's like maybe this is the time to let them bow out with grace and maybe leave us with some lasting lessons that we can take forward. And just because physically the Bigfoot aren't there anymore, spiritually they can be with us every day.
Right. All good things must come to an end. And, we have proven in our past episodes the existence of ghosts and entities after life. So what's so wrong with having Bigfoot ghosts or ghosts of Bigfoot?
Yeah.
And I kind of want that. That brings me to that. That's a pretty good question for Ranger Steve. Have you encountered any spirits of the woods or of the park? Spirits of other animals past and even Bigfoot?
Well, I've definitely experienced witchcraft in the woods for sure, 100%. Yeah, there's a lot of spooky stuff going out there, and there's some Wiccan hiding out over in Yellowstone. So yeah, there's a lot of witchcraft, and I have seen the spirit of animals and the essence of the air at night as I stare into the stars, and I see the shooting stars, and I see the moon so bright and white. And I do feel the presence of past and present and future beings and spiritual questers. So I definitely can say yes to that.
Are you ever afraid in those moments?
Afraid?
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm not afraid because I just am being in that moment. There's nothing to fear. There's nothing to fear. I learned that in Park Ranger Day 3 that there's nothing to fear. And that's part of their motto is there's nothing to fear. So kind of ingrained in my own body, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, I think the saying is rangers are here. There's nothing to fear.
That it's like you were a ranger yourself in a past life.
Well, I mean, ranger adjacent, we'll say.
Yeah,
and it harkens back to a time when all mottos and slogans had to rhyme. It was it was necessary for the day. I mean,
it's old school, yeah.
Yeah, that's just how things were.
Well, as Rangers, we keep it very traditional. So,
right, and
there seems to be a lot of pomp and circumstance when it comes to Rangers and traditions. I mean, we're talking about secret societies on a previous episode, and I mentioned how my grandfather was a Freemason, and there's tons of rules that has to do with that. And so, I have to ask you, like, are these principles something that you've just adopted yourself, or is there some kind of oath or rules that you have to adhere to being a park ranger in such a prestigious national park such as Yellowstone?
I mean, there are rules for sure that I need to adhere to, but more than anything, it's just come from within. So it feels right to do what's right. It doesn't feel right to do what's wrong. It feels wrong.
Yeah. And maybe that's why the Bigfoot ultimately chose you to be their proxy, or I guess whatever you want to call it. They chose you because they can probably feel the purity. They can feel the stillness within you and that oath that you took personally to dedicate yourself to to nature.
I just want to say yes. Thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
Have any of your fellow park rangers had any interactions? I wonder if, it sounds almost trite, but are there any bad eggs in the park rangers that maybe in turn had bad experiences with Bigfoot because of their own negativity? I wonder if there is any parallel there, even if
100%, Phil. Yeah, 100%. My second day, there was a guy named Paul. Paul was just a grump.
awful.
Just a grump. And he had just gotten divorced and lost both his kids in a fire. And he was out and just filled with this negative energy. And I get that we have hard times. We all have hard times. But Paul was just radiating this negative vibration. And he and I were out in the country, and we were in our 4x4 doing wheelies. And we came across this hillside, parked out. I had to take a urination. So I went out there. I took a pee. And Paul, just a Debbie Downs, he started complaining about his divorce again. And I said, Paul, it's been 6 years. What are you expecting? Come on, you need to get over it. And sure enough, we saw my guy. We saw my guy. And Paul just let out this negative because he didn't like the way he smelled. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, the way those are pheromones. Those are Bigfoot pheromones. Those are not bad smells. Those are what pheromones smell like. Mm-hmm. So Paul let out this, and I looked at Bigfoot and I said, I wood tapped and I said, I'm sorry. And
I bet that was one of the a huge moment of body language communication. Where Bigfoot could see the apology just coming out of you because of the proximity to your fellow park ranger, and you say feeling just embarrassed and apologetic, and I think that maybe that was one good step toward communication.
It was really kind of a breaking point for us, to be honest, Phil, because yes, he could see it. He could see that I was apologizing. I used to act for a few years. I dabbled in Hollywood for a few years in acting business before becoming a park ranger. So, I studied Meisner, and I know how to send someone a message through my eyes only and entirely through my eyes. Mm-hmm. And by the grace of good God, I'm a born-again Christian, by the grace of good God, Bigfoot was able to recognize that, and he spared me that day. But gosh, he did not spare Paul.
What happened to Paul?
He got eaten. Alive.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he got eaten alive by a black bear. A black bear came out of nowhere, and Bigfoot did nothing to stop it, and the black bear just tore him apart.
Yeah. But purely coincidence? Do you think Bigfoot summoned the bear?
It's hard to say. I didn't pick up that kind of vibration from him because I was so busy locked eyes and communicating through my deeper soul, through his deeper connected soul to the source. So it's hard to say that he was busy signaling a bear. I honestly just think it was pure coincidental and just Paul's luck.
Well, I'll ask Dr. Seymour. It's got to be the pheromones. It's, because we talked about the scent. And if someone thinks that a scent is not good, I think that means that their body chemistry just isn't gelling. It's not lining up. So I'll ask Dr. Seymour, how important are pheromones in a situation like this?
They're incredibly important. And the other thing that this shows us, which is thrilling to me, is how close the connection between human and Bigfoot remains, despite obvious differences. Pheromones, like a butterfly's pheromones or an ostrich's pheromones, have very little impact on me and mine on they. But when we have that historical and evolutionary link with something else, the way our bodies are made to sense one another in that way is incredibly significant. And that connection or lack of connection that came in that encounter shows a lot, and also shows how important all the other ways of communication are. Because we want to pretend that written and spoken language is communication, but our bodies are communicating so many ways. Mm-hmm. And it's wonderful that Ranger Steve was able to turn his body language into a positive connection after such a negative encounter in that circumstance.
Yes, it's almost as humans we don't say, "Oh man, that butterfly stinks," because we don't have that genetic link that you mentioned. But a Bigfoot, oh well, it's our bodies are speaking close to the same language, and it's exciting in a way.
It really is.
Yeah, I think so. Man, that's just fascinating. And I'm sorry that happened to your fellow ranger, but
Yeah, I'd like
It
to
was
say,
what it is, There's nothing we can do about it. It's all in God's hands.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I'm sad for Paul's loss, but to be honest, he just sounded like a negative Nelly, and he needed to go, and nature knew that, and nature doesn't play around. So
hey, it finds a way.
Yeah,
It always does. Well put, Tina.
Thank you. Well, since we just talked about murder, let's lighten it up a little bit. I want to ask Steve because we were talking last week about aliens and being able to communicate with them, and not really being sure if they share the same kind of sense of humor that we have. In your adventures with Bigfoot, what are some of the things he finds funny? Does he have a sense of humor, or is he just a very stoic, very serious being?
He is the light in the sun. He has such a need for humor. His biggest gag is he loves to play on physical comedy. He's a big physical comedy guy. As someone who doesn't really speak vocally, he oftentimes resorts to the physicality of things, and he's playing in Mother Nature's womb, so why not? The endless source of trees and shrubs to hurt yourself in and do bits.
Right. I have to imagine being that tall, you have a lot to work with in that tool set as well. Do you have a favorite Bigfoot bit or routine?
My favorite is when he goes into the river and he acts like he's going down a flight of stairs. It gets me.
That's a classic. That's a classic.
Where are you going down there? Where are you going? What's down there? What's
The
down
basement. It's going to the basement.
there? Going to the basement. He's going to Aquarius or whatever that place is called. I don't know.
My gosh, that's so funny. Is he any receptive to technology? Have you shown him any sort of old videos, maybe some Chaplin or some Buster Keaton?
He has an iPad that he picks up through 3G. Verizon, I have that set up for him. I gave that him as a gift 2 years ago for Christmas.
That's so nice.
Yeah, it's the larger one. It's an iPad Pro. It's 11.5 inch because he's got those big fingers.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I also got him the Apple Pencil because that's a lot easier to navigate on the screen. So yeah, he's receptive to technology. He's still learning. He's doing a lot of tutorials. I know it's been 2 years, but the thing with the Bigfoot is they learn very, very slow. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of people know that. They think they're very quick, and they are quick on their feet, but they're not quick on their mind when they're learning technology.
Sure. Well, it's, they haven't needed it for thousands of years.
Yeah. So it's a whole new ball game, but they're quite receptive. He's got a couple Apple Pods. He goes through them so quick because he just loses them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to happen in the woods. I imagine it may be more difficult to keep track of things with other animals running around, taking.
It's hard to do.
Taking things.
Is he able to communicate with you through the iPad?
Well, through drawings, yes, through drawings.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll open up Procreate, and he'll doodle a couple drawings, and I'll doodle back, and a lot of times he just ends in smiles and hugs.
Aww. It's like talking to a friend that you've had forever. You just, sometimes you can just say so much without saying anything at all.
The things that I've said to him, he's like a brother.
Yeah.
He's like a brother with so much more hair and leathery foot pads. But a brother nonetheless.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say I wish more conversations ended with smiles and hugs, but
I wish. Maybe that's a lesson that we can take forward into the world is, more smiles and hugs, less hostility. I did want to ask, what's the personality differences between the two? Because it sounds like you have your guy who's in Yellowstone, and then you have the other one who I believe you said is he's the older one. He's in Olympic.
Yeah, the other one in the Olympic National Forest, he's gonna be younger.
Oh, he's the younger one, right?
He's gonna be younger. He is as stubborn as an ox, or as stubborn as a Bigfoot, as we like to say together, because he's just so stubborn in his ways.
Stubborn but still pure of heart, or is
100% pure of heart? Yeah. He just, that egoic Bigfoot brain just sometimes gets in the way.
Well, he's the young one. He's got a lot to learn. So
Got a
hopefully
lot to
your
learn.
guy can teach him some more about the responsibility.
Yeah. But he's a great fisherman. He sets him free though, because like I said, he's vegetarian. But gosh, he loves the fish.
Mm-hmm.
For the sport. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, for the sport.
Challenge. So going back to some technology and things like, have you ever played music for them? Have they? Because we always talk about music as a universal language. So I wonder if you ever threw on some tunes, how they reacted, or if
They go crazy for Bon Jovi. They love some
Really?
Bon Jovi. They freaking go crazy for the guy. Yes,
You give love a bad name.
Oh, you give love a bad name. That's our favorite. It's our
You
favorite.
think it's the hair?
I think it could be with the hair, but also, I mean, John Bon Jovi, he has such a beautiful voice. Such a beautiful voice.
I agree.
So natural.
It's natural. It has that purity of heart that I see also in the Bigfoot. In both.
It's a voice that sails above instruments.
It sails a million seas, Tina.
Mm-hmm. That's
Wow.
good taste. That's just good
It's
taste.
good musical taste.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this has been so insightful. I mean, I feel like we could go on and on, but
I'd love to, Phil.
yeah. Well, why don't we take a quick break and come right back? We still have to get to our mailbag, but I do want to try and finish things up best we can, because there's always more to talk about when it comes to Bigfoot.
We're back from a little break. We're talking today with Ranger Steve Littles from Yellowstone National Park about the Bigfoot. And I must say, I feel like, because we're heading into the home stretch here, I kind of feel like a better person after talking about Bigfoot and talking about Ranger Steve's experiences with this being and to Bigfoot, actually, and being invited into their life and getting to know their inner workings, getting to know their communication styles, sense of humor. I feel a sense of well-being just knowing that someone like this is out there.
Yeah,
That's the Bigfoot's work, to be honest. That's Bigfoot's work.
Yeah.
And we went into this episode, we don't want to be too spooky, and it'll be, rainbows and sunshine. But as it turns out, it does, giving us the same feeling that rainbows and or sunshine might.
It does, yeah.
Positive message.
In another way, it's not fluffy, but it's peaceful, and we're talking about different faiths at one point, and I think we have a lot to learn from Bigfoot, and it is bittersweet because these are the last two, but maybe not. Maybe something might happen, and we still have possibly thousands of years with these two, so there's still many lessons to be learned.
Yeah, a lot of reverence there.
A lot of reverence.
So, Ranger Steve, before we wrap up today's episode, are there any, I would say, parting words from you, but possibly parting words from Bigfoot?
Oh, well, 100%. I did let him know that I was going to be taking this call, and so I told him that I would represent well, and ultimately, Bigfoot is love. Bigfoot is love. He is the divine energy and connection to what is the source of existence. So we need to remember that the next time we're trying to snap an IG photo or get on the Google Maps and try to find him.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we got to stop the hate. I know the haters are going to hate, but we got to stop the hate. It's just bad energy. It's bad energy for me. It's bad energy for you, Phil, Tina, Dr. Seymour. It's just bad energy for all of us.
Right. And we saw what, with Paul, what happens to bad energy. The universe quickly takes care of that.
Yeah, whatever you put out comes back to you.
It truly does. It truly does.
Yeah.
Form of bear.
A lot of people want to know what they do when they see a Bigfoot. And, my number one thing is just don't panic. You just stop, drop, and roll. That's it. And if you're on a hillside, it's a little better.
Mm-hmm.
A little distance in between gives you some more security. Bigfoot doesn't need security, but you might.
So you're recommending if we see a Bigfoot, we should kind of maybe keep our distance.
I wouldn't say keep your distance. If you stop, rock, and roll, you won't need to keep your distance. But if you do it on a hillside, that's for you. That's not for him.
Okay.
You will be rolling away at that point.
You will be rolling away from that beautiful experience.
Okay.
I mean, I could. What if you forget that? Is there something?
If you forget that, then you just remember what you do when you see a fire. You stop, drop, and roll.
Stop, drop, and roll.
Yeah.
Oh, stop, drop, and roll. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
but if you forget that, I mean, like I said, just be chill. Just be chill. Take a couple Meisner classes. Learn to translate that love through your eyes into another being of life and into their deeper soul of connected divine.
Well, it's like with seeing any celebrity. It's okay if they talk to you, but you shouldn't talk to them.
100. Yes. Exactly.
So,
never meet their eye line. Never look them in their.
Never look them in the eye.
They are by their nature better than we are, so it's important.
And usually very good looking.
They are very good looking,
and and that makes them more trustworthy as well.
Trustworthy, yes.
So they are better people. Being celebrities.
We just open our hearts, approach it that way, and if you remember, if you're not completely starstruck, 'cause I don't know what I would do if I saw Bigfoot, but stop, drop, and roll.
Stop, drop, and roll.
Maybe sing out some Bon Jovi in the process of they know you're cool.
That's the thing is they hate it when other people sing Bon Jovi.
Oh, they don't like covers.
Yeah, they don't like covers, but
I have to agree with the Bigfoot on that one.
Yeah.
100%. But just if you could play it, just honestly, if you're going to go camping, just get a video loaded up, just so you can play it for safety.
Right.
For safety.
The real thing, yeah. No one wants to hear someone else singing.
Put your lunch up in a tree and blast Bon Jovi.
Some excellent words to live by.
Excellent words. I mean, I think this has been just so illuminating and wonderful. And so I definitely want to thank Ranger Steve for coming on today and sharing his experiences with us. And going forward, I hope we are able to spread the message of the Bigfoot, of this love and hope and understanding, and maybe go forward and be better people. So thank you, Steve, for joining us today.
Thank you guys for having me. This has been a true pleasure. And I know that Bigfoot is more than pleased that this has happened today.
And please tell Bigfoot that we love him unconditionally.
To be honest, he already knows.
It's like Santa.
He's a big furry little Santa. Not without a little belly. He's good.
Yeah, a little bit. Wonderful. Steve, thank you so much.
Live.
And thank you to Dr. Seymour. Dr. Seymour, do you have anything else that you'd like to add before we close up our science bunker today?
Oh, nothing today. Just been a real joy to hear the positivity and the hope in this tough situation.
Yeah, I couldn't say it better myself. So we'll close up our science bunker here. Thank you, Dr. Seymour. And thank you, Steve Littles. Man, Phil, I feel really good.
Yeah, a lot of positivity and enlightenment and just good vibes that
good vibes.
Hopefully it'll translate to our viewers and listeners and readers and watchers so that they can pass that on throughout the rest of the world. So check, while you're listening to this on iTunes right now, give it 5 stars and then pass it on to a friend.
Yeah, pay it forward. That's the lesson of the Bigfoot. I think it's a good time to mention that if anyone has any tips, any sort of science tips, any sort of thing about the Bigfoot, maybe ideas about how to preserve the species, if that's the route that the Bigfoot wants to go, any sort of questions or comments, they are always welcome to send those to us through our email address at realtruefactsmail@gmail.com. And they can always go to Instagram and follow us at realtruefactsgram. And we have tons of info behind our episodes. And you are also able to contact us there with any of your Bigfoot queries.
So, speaking of email, what does the mailbag look like this week? What have you chosen? What can we possibly address this week?
Yes. Let's see. We do have a few emails. We are also on YouTube. You can listen to our shows on YouTube. We don't have any YouTube comments today. These comments come from our Podbean platform that we're on. This says, you guys are awesome. We love the show. My wife and I grab a glass of wine and listen after dinner. Thank you so much for saying what so many of us always suspected about the world. That comes from Robert.
Oh, thank you, Robert. I'm
Yeah.
glad that you're sharing the show with a loved one.
Yeah, this episode in particular is a very good after dinner show. I feel like very good for the digestion.
Yes, love is one of nature's greatest digestive aids.
Yes. We also have an email on a Real True Facts mail, Gmail, that says, Ghost Lady. This is from Anonymous. It says, that ghost lady sounds hot. Is she single? You guys should do a show about psychic stuff. I believe the ghost lady, that was Eleanor Darkness that we had on from our Poltergeist episode, she is single. So you can always hit us up if you, if you want to get with her. I guess
maybe
we can
send us a profile or something. Like and we can pass it on to her. So
we can get her stats.
If she likes it, yeah.
Yeah, we'll get her stats up there. You can get your stats. And we'll do some matchmaking. You guys should do a show about psychic stuff.
Psychic stuff. Wow.
Yeah,
so
that's kind of loaded. That's a lot there.
Yeah, psychic stuff. Because I mean, that's not unlike our Poltergeist show. Can you guys do a show on ghost stuff?
Yeah,
so,
we kind of narrowed it down there.
But I think that's a perfectly good, perfectly reasonable request for us to delve into next week.
Yeah, there's a lot there. We've got telekinesis. We've got we talked about mediums, but there's mind reading. There's there's empaths. There's just crystals, things. There's tons of things
here. And more.
And a bag of chips. Why don't you join us next week and we'll talk about psychic stuff. I use my air quotes there. My psychic stuff.
Right. So, more good vibes hopefully to come. Be sure to check us out. We should be available on all your favorite podcasting platforms like Spotify, iTunes. Leave us a comment, give us a rating, and pay it forward.
Yeah. I Googled us today. And I Googled Real True Facts podcast. Mm-hmm. And we are just all over the internet. We're everywhere. We're like the only thing that comes up. So it's like you just have to throw a dart in the internet and you'll be able to find us. So do as Phil says. If you like us, send the show to your friends. We have said this many times before. We are a public service. So we are able to do our jobs better if you get the word out. So we can't do it without you.
Viewers and listeners. Yes, thank you.
Yes. So thank you today again to our guest, Dr. Seymour, Yellowstone National Park Ranger Steve Littles. Thank you for joining us. And thank you to my co-host, Phil, for doing the work. And thank you to all of our listeners yet again. We love you to pieces. This is the show about love. So we love you. We can't do without you. Please continue to listen. And my dear viewers, just because you hear about it or read about it doesn't mean it's true. We will see you next week.